There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
We called it the LOL method, the little old lady method of wiring these cores. Not a very nice, today you couldn't say those, say that.
It was extremely slow. One program could take several months to weave, and if there was an error, it was a nightmare to correct. The software program was falling dangerous.
The memory modules of the computer are made using a basic component, which is a donut-shaped magnetic core. Now this core will be placed into a component holder like so. Now after the component holder has been completely loaded with cores, we're then ready to do the wiring. In order to perform the wiring operation, we store about 20 feet of wire in this needle. See how that wire comes out of there? Now the operator will take a core holder and pass the needle through the core, around to the other side, and then weave it back through a different position. Now let's watch how the girls do this operation in a little more detail. Now, here we have a pair of girls who are wiring the address wiring of the core rope module. Now they pass the wire back and forth, stored in the needle, and put it through the cores in a particular wiring pattern. Now each time a wire goes through, they must very carefully wrap the wire around one of those little nylon pins. As you can see, what that does is pull the wire away from the center of the core to allow room to pass the needle through again.
I see. Now these address wires go to every single core?
That's right. Now when the wire is completely weaved into the rope, it must be terminated on a little solder terminal. Now the girl strips the insulation from the wire and very carefully wraps it around the pin. Then they use a magnifying glass to inspect their work. Now the sense wiring information, or the wiring that contains the program of the fixed memory, is performed by using this machine. The machine indexes to a particular location of a core, and then the girl passes the needle through the aperture and provides the wire to go through the right core.
She doesn't have to think about which core it goes through next.
No, the machine does that for her. Now note, each time the wire passes through, that little aperture jogs down and pulls the wire around one of the nylon pins. When she passes the needle through, she will trip the switch with the needle, which causes a tape reader to advance. There's the tape reader, and that in turn causes the core rope plane to move its position. Now after all the wiring is completed, these nylon pins that we use to temporarily hold the wire can now be removed. Next, we must press the wires very gently down into place so we'll be able to fold up the whole assembly.
This is a mechanical jacquard loom. This technology was developed in France in 1803 by a weaver named Joseph Marie Jacquard. The key thing about this loom is that it controls every warp thread, the threads that go from the front to the back of the loom, individually. Because it can do that, the loom can create very complex, fancy patterns in the cloth more quickly and with greater accuracy than the technology available before this loom was developed. These cards are what carry the instructions that are read by the apparatus on the second floor that tells the loom what pattern to create. The holes in the cards are read by a series of pins up in the apparatus, and those holes tell the apparatus which threads down here should be raised for each pass of my shuttle across the warp. Some of you might recognize these cards as looking similar to computer punch cards. Back in the early days of computer technology, punch cards carried instructions that told the early computers what kind of calculations to do. So this loom is the great-great-great-grandfather of the computer technology that we all use today, and that technology started with a machine that produces cloth.
Internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11. A little more. About another inch. There, you got it? That's a good step. Yep. About a 3-footer. Beautiful view. Foot up there and both hands down about the 4th rung up. There you go. Okay, now I think I'll do the same. A little more.
When Apollo first started, the person who was in charge, he asked his wife, "What is software? Is it soft clothing?" In other words, the word was not known. When I speak of software, I'm really talking about putting together code for a system with many pieces. People didn't call it software engineering before. But on Apollo, we realized that we're doing engineering as much as anybody is here. During Apollo 11, I was in charge of the onboard flight software that took us to the moon and back on the command module and the LEM.
at the right place and the right time. A lot of women became homemakers and reared their families, and there are a lot of benefits to that. But I think I have a strong sense of adventure, and I wanted to do something more. She said, listen, they've given me every reason in the world.
My name is Elaine Deniston. While at the instrumentation lab, as Draper Lab was then known, I was the key punch operator whose responsibility included typing up the programs onto IBM cards so they could be put in the system. This obviously preceded direct punching into the computers. And as part of, so that was my responsibility. And part of what I also did, just because I am who I am, I would be reading them along and I'd say, and go back and say, I think this should have had a period or it should have had a right parent or something that was very easy to spot, but maybe not so easy to remember to put in if you're writing along. So I used to do that and it's like, oh yeah, that would have made the program fail. So that's what I did, and I would go around and remind people. But basically, I was a key punch operator and runner. And that's what I did.
you.